Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I want to share a shamanic practice with you that I learned some time ago. It involves going into the astral, finding an object, and waking back up in the physical in order to go and seek it and retrieve it. The purpose of this practice is to find power, power in a shamanic spiritual sense, and more specifically, to experience what shamans call dreaming awake. In other words, to be consciously in the dream slash astral state while awake. So, more on this later. So, I'm going to explain how to do it, the significance of it, and also share my own experience of it, which, for those of you who are interested in confirming or validating experiences, this is naturally one of those. However, this practice is not about confirming experiences. It's so much more than that. Actually, if a shaman gave you this practice and you told him the only reason you want to do it is in order to confirm the genuineness and validity of an experience, he would just look at you like, "Who are you, you buffoon?" He would just be utterly confused at your way of thinking. Because, of course, every experience for a shaman is already, a confirming experience. Ever since my first experience, I've never really cared for confirming experiences in some sort of scientific method or something, because the authentic out of body experience is a confirmation in itself, in the most profound sense of the direct experience of it. There is no doubt in your mind when it happens. Once you're out of body, you're in the realm of knowledge, not the realm of intellectual speculation. And there's a deep knowing here that goes beyond any description that I could use with words, right? So, shamanism was actually one of the first fields, you could say, of how I got into the world of the spirit, right? To talk in shamanistic terms. I really love the shamanistic intuition and perspective on things relating to reality and the world itself. Like many, one of the very first books I read were the ones by Carlos Castaneda, which are all about him being an apprentice under a Native American shaman called Don Juan Matus. After about a year after reading his books is when I met my Gnostic teacher, who, to my surprise, knew the shaman Don Juan Matus himself and his family. I'll leave a link in the description below with Carlos Castaneda's books if you're interested. I also think a book called Chosen by the Spirits, Following Your Shamanic Calling, is a good place to start too if you're really interested in getting into shamanism. That book is more based upon Mongolian shamanism, but shamanism is shamanism when we really understand the essence behind all these teachings throughout different religions, right? So, after Carlos Castaneda was Don Juan's apprentice, his next apprentice was someone called Marilyn Tunishende. If you liked Carlos Castaneda's books, I highly recommend Marilyn's. They're basically a more enlightened version of Carlos's books, which get straight to the point of hers and Don Juan's wisdom-filled talks with various other shamans and medicine men and women that she met, along with practices that she provides in the books. So, just one of those practices is called bridge dreaming, which is what I'm going to show you today. This particular practice is from her book called Don Juan and the Art of Sexual Energy, the Rainbow Serpent of the Toltecs. You can see the book cover here on the screen now. So, one thing I need to make clear is that in Native American shamanism and many other shamanistic traditions, in the realm of knowledge of dreaming and astral projection, there is actually very little specifications or conceptual differentiations between astral projection and dreaming. This is because for the shaman, he or she is awake in the full sense of the word awake. And therefore, they are not concerned with or obsessed about separate concepts of astral projection and dreaming like so many of us are, right? If you don't understand what I mean about being awake in the full sense of the word, check out my video called Lucid Dreaming versus Astral Projection, which is on the screen now. That video has the awakening of consciousness at the basis of understanding this. So, in essence, all dreaming for shamans is astral projection. And people who have regular dreams, us, are just like delusional people who are not awake to other realities, right? So when I talk about shamanistic dreaming, I'm talking about the fact that shamans understand the dream world as not something illusory or filled with fantasies, right? They connect with the astral realities, which is through dreaming. But in shamanistic terminology, this dreaming is better said or written with a capital D, right? So let me clarify a little further. So, shamanistic dreaming is not regular dreaming like all of us regular, ordinary people have. Shamanistic dreaming isn't about being obsessed about scientifically validating experiences or something, basically because their experiences already have validity and objectivity to them. Dreaming for them is a way to experience visions of the future or deeper realities, maybe vision quests, right? To undertake mystical journeys of learning, to gain wisdom, to understand how to heal, to learn about aspects of nature, or to understand a plant or spirit animal or something, right? For example, if a medicine man or healer didn't know how to heal a person, they would, quote unquote, dream the cure and find the correct plant and find the procedure they need to do to extract the plant and figure out how to administer it to the sick person. They would gain all of that knowledge from dreaming. In other words, from the astral. A lot of tribes around the world and throughout history use this technique. Of course, in modern common astral projection perspectives, this is interpreted as them going into the astral and finding out knowledge in a sort of natural Akashic records way, right? So I personally much prefer this more purer way of understanding our non physical experiences. But of course, we do have unconscious dreams and we have unconscious psychological patterns that don't coincide with reality, right? So even though I personally really much prefer the more purer way of understanding this non physical dimension that we all access every night, I know that, of course, it is also absolutely necessary to have these two different terms of dreaming and astral projection. And especially, of course, for the purpose of teaching and sharing this knowledge in the modern world in a more quantifiable way for everyone to understand so that we can differentiate these two experiences. And that's why it's so difficult for so many to understand the difference between lucid dreaming and astral projection. Because to really understand it, you have to understand your own delusions of the world. So, if you're still confused about what I'm talking about, please check out my video called Lucid Dreaming versus Astral Projection. I believe it's my most viewed video, so it shouldn't be hard to find. And probably check out some of my other videos too. I do touch on that topic here and there. So I just wanted to lay some foundation there that shamans understand dreaming essentially in the same way we understand astral projection. So this practice of bridge dreaming really could be called astral bridging, right? So if a shaman ever mysteriously says to you, I dreamt of you, he most likely actually saw you in the astral and maybe even knows something about you. This is because the shaman, if he really is an authentic one, he does not dream like ordinary people do. Dreaming in our usual, ordinary, unconscious sense, in traditional psychological terms, right? Or better said, he doesn't daydream and live his life in petty thoughts or random fantasies. He is connected to reality. And what happens when you go to sleep at night and are absolutely free from unconscious egoic dreams? Well, you enter and access this realm of knowledge, right? In other words, the astral. A person who does this and has traversed this path for many years and decades is someone who shamans would call a man of knowledge. There's a good YouTube video with an excerpt on Don Juan talking about the four natural enemies of a man of knowledge. I'll leave it in the description below. Go ahead and listen to it after this if you're interested. So, now that I've given a brief explanation of all that and the shamanistic perspective and terminology of astral projection, let's go into the actual practice. I've taken a picture from the book itself and will put it on the screen for you. It's a 5-step guide. Then I'll talk about the experience I had with it. Just before I do, I just want to give a shout out to Gabby, who pledged more than I offer on Patreon, and also Quinton, who chose the higher amount as well. So, people choosing to give more than $3 is really appreciated. Everyone gets the same benefits, but you lot giving more, it means a lot. I feel the love. So thank you. And I hope you enjoy our meetings in the Discord server. If you're also interested in supporting the channel and my future books, I have about 3 books planned now. So if you are interested in supporting, please check out the link in the description below. And so here's the practice on the screen. It's the very first practice in the book. So let's see here. Number 1. Set up the intent to be lucid within your dream. That is, to realize that you are dreaming while in the midst of it. Say to yourself over and over as you fall asleep, I will realize that I am dreaming during my dreams. Take note that dreaming has a capital D, right? It does not mean dreaming in the traditional psychological sense. Select a cue such as your hands or the sound of your own voice, to trigger the realization. Say to yourself, each time I hear my own voice or see my hands, I will realize that I'm dreaming. Number two, set a gentle alarm to awaken you after 3 hours of sleep, and then every 2 hours following. Awakening several times during the night enables you to have more recent recall of all dreaming activity and sets yourself to the task again. So basically, waking up every 2 hours during the night gives you a lot more chances to experience something significant, at least, at the minimum. Number three, once you have attained frequent lucidity, start looking for a pre selected object not in your possession. So, something that you don't own, such as a smooth stone. When you find that particular object in dreaming, begin the search for it in the waking world, knowing that you will succeed, even though it may take time. This object has been signaled by power as an aid to you. Once you find your object of dreaming in the waking world, you have successfully bridged. Ask permission of the energy to take the object home with you, if this is possible. Set it in a prominent place so that you may see or feel it as you are falling asleep. If your object is a stone, it may be secured over your umbilical region by rolling it in a sash tied around your midriff. If it is not possible to physically take what you have dreamed, you may photograph it, touch it, or simply remember it. Once you can bridge, you may attempt to bridge anything: a place, a person, an idea, a power, something for the betterment of the world, such as peace. The more you bridge, the more sure and sturdy the foundation becomes until it is so strong that you may actually walk across it into dreaming awake. In other words, she's hinting that you may manifest these things in the waking world, whatever it may be. And if you've ever had an astral projection experience and felt some form of tremendous energy, something profound that you wouldn't usually feel while ordinarily awake in the physical, well, then you're connecting to energies not of this world, right? That's part of what the shaman's journey is all about, and why shamans can be viewed as strange or misinterpreted. Because a lot of the time, the energies that they carry are not of this ordinary world that we all know. Dreaming awake is the experience of bridging or feeling those same energies back in the physical, not just when we're asleep. There's far more to this, of course. It would maybe be better just to tell you the story of my own experience of this, which I had a few years ago. I originally tried this practice around 9 years ago with no luck, and I remembered the practice again a few years ago, and I thought I'd read the book again and give it another try, and it happened. It was a relatively short experience. So, with my intention set, I fell asleep peacefully, and at some point during the night, I found myself consciously out of body down a few roads away from where I was sleeping. It was nighttime, just as it was in the real time of my physical body. I immediately had this sense to walk in a certain direction on the pavement. And without much thinking, I just started walking, and eventually I stumbled across a tree. This tree was on the pavement coming out of the concrete, which is quite common in the UK. And at the bottom of the tree, I was magnetized to what was a somewhat large, smooth, light grey, a bit dirty pebble, which was about half the size of my hand. And as I bent down to pick it up and hold it in my hand, I just felt it and analyzed it for a moment. And as I did, my whole energy began to shift. And how can I explain it? My body dissolved. It dissolved its atoms upwards into thin air, as if I just evaporated. And as I did, my whole awareness transitioned into a mental space where at first it was just pure darkness, and slowly I perceived dancing geometric lights forming patterns together all around me. It's really hard to describe. I wish I could animate it because I have it so perfectly in my mind, all the patterns. I was in a vast void with only these lights. And the sensation was as if those lights were right in front of me, but at the same time, they could have also been light years away from me, which gave this sensation of pure immensity and vastness. What's even harder to describe is the enlightening feeling that my mind was being cleansed or washed, as if cosmic rays were showering through me. Just a sublime, beautiful, and opening experience, really. I'm sure some of you have had similar experiences in meditation, perhaps, and I have too, but to experience it in this way is really moving. And it's like when you get goosebumps from listening to beautiful, inspirational music, but intensify those goosebumps by 100 times, going throughout your whole body. And through this invigoration, I also felt this peace and fullness and being at one with everything. I was nothing, yet I was everything and endowed with this life force. After some time, eventually I re-established back into my physical body, but what was still of utmost value to this experience is that I still retained whatever power or state of being that I felt. It wasn't just my energy body now that was pulsating with this energy, but now my physical body was too. And I laid in bed completely still in this sort of samadhi meditation for some time. And when I was ready, I got up, wrote the experience down in my journal, invigorated with this new sensation, without clinging or attaching to that sensation, might I add, because that's important, right? That we don't seek or cling onto new sensations. And I eventually gradually got ready to go outside to that same location on the street where I found that pebble, which, according to the shamanic teaching, it was a gift from power itself. And I don't doubt that, because when I did walk back down that street to my, of course, overwhelming, um, it wasn't shock, but it was this overwhelming feeling of awe and my heart just opening up to the fact that I was back in this exact location where my energy body just was. And I picked up the stone, held it in my hand in pure amazement, trying to keep my composure and excitement of the fact that I found this exact same rock in the same location, on the same tree, while also feeling and connecting to the energies that this rock had been a catalyst for just around a couple of hours ago when I was in the astral with the rock. But now I was in the physical with it, and so I was dreaming awake. Do I fully understand what power is inside the pebble? No. Do I claim that there is even any power in the pebble? No. Do I know whether the power only works for me? No, I don't. Do I claim to understand any of this experience that I had? Not really. At least not intellectually and in a way that I can describe effectively for you. It was, at its heart, a mystical experience. But do I know that the experience was true and more authentic than most of my experiences in the physical and influenced me and moved me to the core of my being? Absolutely. And that's all that matters, right? I still have the same pebble on my altar today, and I always recall and connect with whatever dimension I came in touch with when I see it or touch it, or if I need some aid, so to speak. So, as you can see, that pebble now acts as a physical bridge to the non physical for me, a physical object for my consciousness to make a link to that wonderful dimension as best as I can whenever I intend to. So, why am I sharing this practice and experience with you? I think there's quite a few of you who are open to such an experience, and at the very least, it helps us to understand how we can interact and form relationships with the physical world in intimate and profound ways like this, even with something as simple as a rock. All of this, astral projection, it's not all just about the non physical. Remember, awakening consciousness is all about giving up unconscious dreaming and understanding ourselves and reality deeper. Naturally, we don't just become more conscious of what's within, but also without. So we also become conscious of the physical world too more, okay? And the physical world is not just this boring and dead matter that conventional viewpoints make it seem. Uh, you know, Become aware of within, and you become aware of what is outside too. As above, so below. And it's through this approach and understanding that we can start to intuit the reality of how certain objects, like crystals or rocks, may have with this sort of subtle energy or power, like this shamanic teaching shows. Or also, perhaps you may even learn the reality of auras or other energies or plants, nature, animals. There's a reason why the wise people of tribes are always seen as being highly connected with nature. It's natural because they are so connected with their own inner nature and not polluting their inner nature with delusions, psychological obsessions, anger, lusts, uh, desires of this world, etc. Right? They've renounced all of that in order to connect with what is beyond this world. Well, I hope you all found this interesting, everyone. Shamanism takes a very special mindset to fully understand. So, if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask below. I will eventually get back to you. This is Gene. You're listening to Astral Doorway, and I will see you on the next episode.